for the technology and billings. I'm gonna turn it over to Mr. Durr, right?
Welcome, everyone. The first agenda item is a parent transportation contract. The parent will provide the PM transportation for their child from Northern Lehigh to home. The parent would be paid the IRS mileage rate. We are unable to provide that transportation for the student at this time. And with the board's blessing, there would be a board agenda item on next Monday night's agenda to approve this parent transportation contract. Anyone have any questions?
How many students are, one?
One child.
Can you tell us why why?
And once they leave the facility here, are we relieve the liability?
They're responsible for providing us proof of insurance and a driver's license, and it is their own child that they'd be transporting.
Okay, so once they leave and get picked up by the parent, then Northern Lehigh School District is relieved of any liability for that student till he gets home, correct?
I would believe so, but I
Could
can
you
check
check on that,
into
please?
that.
So typically, we've done arrangements like this in the past. Typically, when we go into a parent transportation contract, it goes to their insurance first, and then once that's exhausted, then it would come back to the school district. And the reason for this is because, is this a lift?
No,
No.
student lives out of the district.
Oh, yeah, thank you. So, we're required to provide transportation for students that are covered under the McKinney-Vento Act, which protects students that are homeless.
I just mentioned that to cover her butt, that's all. Right.
Sorry, I'm still, why are we not providing? I'm still not sure I understand.
Due to the driver shortage,
You don't-
we don't have anyone to make that run.
Okay, I can accept that, yeah, all right.
Thank you.
So there will be an agenda item on Monday nights for your approval. The next
Just,
one,
Are the board members on the committee, do we have your support to take that to the board?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
next agenda item is Providence Solar Energy Project. The current energy agreement that we have with Provident ends June 2023. We've talked about this when we first started thinking about the solar project. Provident Energy will be conducting another energy bid near the end of this month. And I had a piece in the Slate about this. Provident Energy will need to know if we're going to participate in the bid or if we're really looking towards a solar project. So what that means, on November 1st, they will need to know from us which way we think we're going to move. If we're going to be moving towards a solar project, and that's the way the board would like to move, we would not include in the Provident Energy bid this main campus or everything that would be powered by the solar project. We will still look to have a portion or maybe all of Peters Electric in the Provident bid. So out of Peters, there are two electrical accounts. There's one for those 15-mile-an-hour speed limit signals, the school safety zone. The second is the building itself. This afternoon, we had a virtual meeting with McClure and Provident to work out the details and make sure we were all on the same page. If we choose to move forward with the solar project, and we only participated in the Provident electrical bid using the Peters accounts, we can either use both services that are out there or just one account. And should the McClure solar project, for some unknown reason, not take place, we can still go back and get an addendum with Provident to provide us electricity. Essentially, because we had a service in the original bid, either it be the 15-mile-an-hour service or the entire building at Peters, we can still get an addendum down the road because we at least participated in the bid. That essentially keeps our foot in the door, kind of a backup plan, if you will. McClure is also looking at some other options for Peters, whether it be its own little solar array out there, or maybe some way with some different routing of conduits here. That piece of it is up in the air yet. But by November 1st, they said they would give us the details on what they're recommending. So at this point, kind of looking for direction from the board. If we're really going to move forward towards the solar project, we are not going to add our main campus into the Provident bid. And we would just use either both services out of Peters to go into the bid, or maybe it's only one of them. So I'll open it up for questions, if I know that was a little probably confusing, but
And you're saying McClure's actually instrumental with the solar system? Energy system?
so they presented to us in August, and we liked everything we heard, and it seemed like there was a general consensus at that time to keep looking at the project. ELA Sport and Provident are working together on the erosion sedimentation.
ELA Sport and McClure are working together.
Is that what, did I say Provident?
Yeah.
ELA Sport and McClure are working together on some of the permits that we're going to need for both projects, since they were going to be happening simultaneously.
Greg, if
I wasn't here for that meeting, so I missed all of it.
Okay.
If we decide, or if possible, to move ahead with the solar project, are we in any way committed to stay with Provident, or can we get out of that at any time, or how does that work?
If we move forward with the solar project, we would only participate in the Provident bid for Peters, let's call it Peters campus, for electricity. We would include,
No, I understand that, but supposing we will move ahead with solar for Peters also, what would that do then with the Provident bid? Would that, okay, once we do the Provident bid, are we forced to use them then, or could we go in a different direction after we do the bid? Could we go solar after we take a bid for them from Provident Energy?
so by November 1st, we should have a really good idea
We should
what
know.
Provident's recommending for Peters.
Okay.
That piece of it right now is kind of undetermined. They could,
Would they possibly recommend solar?
they,
I wouldn't, they wouldn't recommend it, would
I
it?
doubt if Provident would recommend
Oh,
solar.
so-
because
But McClure would recommend the solar,
Right.
and we'll know from McClure by then if they want to do it. Okay.
by November 1st, we'll have more information from McClure on what direction they would recommend for us to move.
What term are we in with Provident, if you do that in November?
If we would participate in November, they told us they're looking at a 3-year agreement. So it'll be from July 1st of 2023 to June 30th of 2026.
Okay, I'm still hung up on the time and date here. So you'll know by November 1st, but how do we as a board vote on it? We're gonna be voting next week, so we have, what kind of a vote do we take saying, if this happens or that happens, then this happens, and that's where I'm confused. So in other words, if next Monday we say, take a look at solar, and they come back and they say that's good, then we don't wanna do the bid, so then we can't vote to go with Provident, but if they, you understand what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
How do we work around that?
Well, I don't know that we're voting on anything on this upcoming Monday for solar directly. Right, there's nothing on the agenda.
Nothing
No.
at this
We don't
point.
have to call a vote on Monday for McClure.
But do we have to call going ahead with Provident on November 1st,
Which will be before our November meeting.
which will be before our November meeting? In other words, whatever decision we make next Monday, unless I'm missing something, guys, but it seems like whatever decision we make Monday, we're not gonna have a chance to reverse that, because that'll be November 1st.
So, if I'm not mistaken, Greg, there's a way that we can actually get our foot in the door by not having to include Peters, the building. We can literally just bid on the 2 street signal signs for the speed controls. And I believe that the gentleman from Providence said that would hold our place. That's
Yes.
about $30 a month. I would recommend that we go that route to keep our position
feel
in the
like
bid
that.
That makes
process.
sense.
Because then if something doesn't work out for solar, which administration is still strongly recommending that we go that direction, we can actually go back and get an amendment, like Greg said, to expand just beyond the 2 street signs.
And we had a blank motion X number of years ago that allowed us to every so many years when Provident does it, go out to bid on them. So we don't always come back because you gave us that blanket motion years ago to say you can always use Provident. Just shop around and get the best price we can.
There is because of the timeline of when our current contract with Provident expires, the end of the end of June this year.
Correct.
And until the utilities could be turned on for solar for the main campus, there is potentially a 6-month gap where we would have to probably pay direct to PPL for this campus until PPL can integrate the solar array field. Other than that, I mean, I think we can lock in Peter's traffic control for 3 years.
And that will keep us open if we want to go for the rest of the building then, or if we don't and we go solar, we're not in any jeopardy. Won't be able to put the traffic signs at $30 a month on the solar panels. I can live with that, okay. I'm fine, I can work that around right now.
Fine with that, Gary? We're fine with that.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
$30 a month.
I believe it was $30 a month,
Yeah.
and that was for both of them.
Yeah, it's either 30 for both of them or 30 for each one of them, but it's less than $100 a month we pay for it.
And that holds our place,
Yep.
that we participated in the bid.
Based on that, I'm fine. I didn't know if that was a possibility. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm good.
Thanks, Greg.
All right, for technology, the first thing I have on there is just, this was an item that came up last month about projectors for the middle school. We did receive about a week or so ago, we received the remainder of our projector order that we ordered. This was ordered from back in March 2022. So we did receive the remainder of our projector order, and right as of now, we are anticipating installing those projectors over the winter break. So I did want to, I know that somebody asked me that question last time, one of the board members asked me if we received all the projectors. I knew we received some, but we didn't get the rest of them. We did receive the remainder of those just about a week or two ago. So we will do those again over the winter break. Any questions on that? All right, the next item I have on here, I'm going to start talking about this topic in the technology meeting, and then when we close the meeting, Mrs. Fink will pick up the remainder of this topic in the financial, when she speaks in the financial. So approximately it was probably about 2 or 3 weeks ago, Mrs. Fink received an email from our current vendor for our point of sale system. for the cafeteria department, for the food service department. We use a POS system in all of our buildings to ring up all the students as they come through. She received an email probably about 2 or 3 weeks ago. We currently use a program called Meals Plus. Apparently Meals Plus was bought by another company, and they said that it will be replaced by another program called Titan. And it's an entirely different program. So we received this a few weeks ago, and the Titan software is different from what we have now. Right now we have Meals Plus. We actually run that on a server in-house. We have a virtual server built, and Stephen Hawes pretty much manages that. But the new program, they're not going to offer that anymore. And they said it's probably going to be within the year. They're going to make that obsolete, so we'll have to switch platforms. The new platform would be, if we would choose Titan, would be an online platform. Okay, so it would be a hosted. They would do it. It would be in the cloud. Okay, we wouldn't host it locally anymore. So when Mrs. Fink found this out, she sent the email to our department to look at it as well. So what we did is Mrs. Fink set up a few different meetings. One was with Titan, and another one was with another software called Primero Edge. So what we did is we had two meetings, one with Titan and one with Primero Edge, where we evaluated the software. I'll just talk from a technical perspective, and then when Mrs. Fink's up, she'll tell you the rest from her department. But we evaluated the software, and myself and Mr. Hawes were involved. And basically what we saw from both of them, the software is very similar. They're both, Titan and the Primero Edge are both cloud-based software, so we would no longer run a server in-house. Everything would be through the cloud and through the internet. And based on what we saw, the software is very similar. And as far as what we already have in place, both programs would already work with what we have in place. For instance, the Titan, that's just a web browser. You bring up a web browser on a POS. So we already have the computers in place where we wouldn't have to buy any hardware to get that started. Likewise, Primero Edge, they can run on a Windows computer, which is what we already have. They can also run on an iPad or also an Android device. So again, we already have the technology in place to run either one of these programs. So I just wanted to just speak from a technology from the technology department. We're okay with either platform. So at that point, Mrs. Fink would have to decide really what works best for the district, you know, when you look at what it's going to cost and the functionality, training, things like that. So that's really what I have for my end. Does anybody have any questions about the technical part of it before we move on?
So it's just program costs that we're gonna be doing, there won't be any hardware cost.
Exactly, yeah. Up front, we wouldn't have any extra hardware cost. It would be whatever the application cost would be, exactly. And actually, I like both programs because it gives us a little flexibility there. Some of the things are, the software can actually run on an iPad, so it gives you a little more
nice,
flexibility where you can take the iPad. I mean, we have a couple laptops now, but most of ours are like actual terminals where they sit on a desk. You know, so now you could easily move them into a classroom. You have a lot more flexibility with them. So. Yeah, so we have some flexibility in the future, but you're correct. We wouldn't have any initial hardware cost.
Well, it's up to you two, I mean, to pick which one.
Yep.
So that actually ends that committee. It's a segue into the finance committee. Mr. Disler, if you're comfortable closing that committee?
Okay, we'll go into the Finance Committee, and we will call then on Mrs. Fink.
So yeah, just to branch off of what Eric said, when we got notification that Meals Plus will be no longer here within the next year, probably looking at sometime, the beginning of the calendar, like anywhere starting this process January 1st or as late as the day after we wrap up the end of the school year, so we're all set to go for next year. Basically, the big, like he had said a few minutes ago, the IT operating the server in-house was a huge cost savings for us. So either way, now we're forced to have either company manage everything in terms of that. So that's where the bump in cost is going to be. But this was a perfect time for us to investigate other companies, and like he said, Primero Edge was the obvious second choice because we already use, Meals Plus for part of what we do, and we use Primero Edge for the other part of what we do. So those are the two companies we sat with and that I requested quotes from. The positive about this is actually with either company, it's going to be like a one-stop, essentially like one platform kind of doing all the ins and outs of the food service stuff now. So it's helpful in that sense for myself, for the food service staff, for parents. They go to one place now if they're looking to look at menus, if they're looking to apply for free and reduced meal applications, so on and so forth. So currently through Primero Edge, what we have is this is where we process our free and reduced meal applications, and as well as our direct certified students. So, anyone who's directly certified through the various programs of SNAP, Medicaid, it basically is like our student management system for that. We also have the feature currently for menu planning as well as production right now, and those are at no cost, and they've been no cost. That's what we're currently using Primero Edge for. So what we would be considering increasing in Primero Edge is that POS system. So that's what we were using Meals Plus for in the past. So we would be adding on the cost of the POS system. There's so many different features with both programs that are more back of the house features as well that we haven't been using that we can consider adding. And I was planning on going into more detail with the price of those at a future meeting. And then we also have K-12 Payment Center, which is where students or parents set up the student meal accounts and make payments and so forth. And then again, our Meals Plus is our POS. That's our point of sale. Currently, that alone is costing us about $1,600 annually. And like he said, both systems are web-based or cloud-based, which is different from prior years. And again, the time frame to start considering this transition would be as early as January 1st. Primero, just to compare a little bit between the two programs, Primero is a 1-year contract versus Titan we're committed to 3 years. There is that initial installation / training fee for both programs, so to install the software, and then also to come in and do like an on-site training with myself, with Eric, with some of the food service staff. The difference between those two fees through Primero, we're looking at $3,995. That's a one-time fee, not annual, and then the one-time fee through Titan is $4,600. And then again, we can customize these quotes, however we want. There's several different categories, not only application processing, but our point of sale, menu planning, nutrient analysis, having digital menus that the parents have easy access to. So I can provide more information in future meetings with that. But and so just to say, we just wanted to do the basic and switch over the POS, and that's our main focus. And regardless of any of those additional back of the house features that we could take advantage of, because each one, of course, comes at an increased cost. But if we just are focusing on POS, if we keep the Primero Edge program for our application processing, meal planning, and production, and add their version of the POS, it's that one-time fee plus then annually thereafter it's $3,960 annually, and that's an increase of about $2,400 from what we're currently paying.
What was the first cost?
For adding the POS through Primero's 3,000. Oh, the one-time fee.
One-time fee.
The one-time fee is $3,960 $3,995. And then the annual fee is $3,960. So again, that's an increase of $2,428 annually. If we do Primero for our application processing and everything else that we currently have it for, but add Titan as our POS, you're looking at that one-time fee of $4,600, and then annually thereafter is $5,215, making that an increase of $3,683 annually. So it's about an extra $1,200 annually for the Titan program versus the Primero Edge program. And that's just strictly, switching over that POS part. So there is other additional add-ons, so things that we can consider. One of them's inventory tracking. So, currently our inventory tracking is very labor intensive. It's honestly just an Excel spreadsheet that or with help from the business department has to, it could be 800 line items. We have our commodities, we have our regular groceries, we have our paper, we have our bread, we have our milk, and we have to update all the pricing for that and manually input that. So it could be, pretty time consuming, whereas this, option as an add-on, just giving this as an example, whenever we receive deliveries, we can actually have, my head cooks have a barcode scanner, and they scan everything in as it's delivered, and it just keeps a day by day, minute by minute, like this is exactly what's in each kitchen's inventory. It's kind of cool because it knows the exact product from the exact manufacturer. The prices are always current, because that's the other thing, prices are fluctuating on a weekly basis sometimes. So rather than having somebody, in constantly, adjusting the cost of everything on a continuous basis like this kind of is a foolproof system that can do it for you. So again, that's like totally separate from the prices that I just threw out there. That's just like the basis for now, but there is all these additional features, and digital menus is a huge one. I think most districts that are local have some type of digital menu where the parent downloads the app on the phone, they just click on the app, boom, right there, they select their school district. It tells you the nutritionals right there, like say we have, a diabetic student that needs to know the carbs, quick and easy. They don't have to go through the nurses or go through me all the time. They can just have it right at their fingertips. So stuff like that would be little add-ons. So we just, again, just a preliminary conversation. No decision has to be made tonight. We're not looking for board approval for anything at the next meeting, but.
When would you look? I think I heard you say January.
They have some incentives right now, both companies, that so everybody that's making the switch over focuses on summer. So and that's like their busiest time of year. So to, get the ball rolling and have them more accessible to us, they're pushing for January 1, and the installation fee you get charged right away with both companies, but they hold off that annual fee until July 1, because they know we're currently going to be under contract with Meals Plus through the end of June.
So what are you recommending? Start in January or wait until next year?
Probably start in January, only because this whole system's going to be time saving across the board and great long term, but the upfront manual data entry part is going to be quite the process, for me personally, well, everybody involved. So I think the earlier the better, just so that we can iron out any glitches before next school year.
So thank you for all the information, but if it was for you to pick for your department,
Yeah, that's the way I feel, Rob. It's a little
Yeah.
bit-
Whichever works the best
Pick-
for you, I would say.
I don't
Yeah.
need to know what it does,
No.
and then just pick the one you want, tell us what,
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
the extra money, go for it,
Yeah.
Whatever you're more comfortable with, that's where I'm coming from.
Okay.
And
More to come.
yeah, I just had a couple things unrelated to that, just updates. Backpack Buddies are doing great. We have 123 students that signed up for that program, so just just to remember, that's the program where we put bags together for food over the weekend for students. So that's district-wide, 123. The Shine program at Peters starts October 11th, so next Tuesday. Slatington will start mid-November was the latest update for that, so we're excited about that. And then just FYI, we received a little bit of funding, 628, for the PEBT data entry that was just done for the summer PEBT. We had to submit a big spreadsheet for that. And then the PA Department of Ed is currently, we can apply for the annual food service equipment grant. So Tanya and I have been working on that together, and we picked, you can pick 2 sites within your district and 1 piece of equipment each, and we picked Peters and high school for that, and dishwashers, because those seem to be in most need and are the oldest pieces of equipment that we have. So we're in the middle of getting quotes for that, and the due date for that is next Friday, so I have to submit that grant application by next Friday, the 14th. And that's all for me.
Thank you.
Not all, because that was kind of a lot, sorry. Hopefully everyone stayed on track with me, trying to make it as concise as I can.
I just have a question. The backpack buddies, do you know how
Yeah.
many students were involved last year?
58 we were up to last year.
Double,
So
yeah.
from 58 to 123 was the most number.
Wow,
And that's
Yeah.
that's the trend across most of the Lehigh County districts.
Yeah. Any questions or anything?
Thank you.
All right, our local auditors were in last week. They have sent me Friday just a couple of other items they're looking for. I will get that to them by the end of this week, and then hopefully we'll have their numbers back sometime towards the middle or the end of this month to be able to inform the board on exactly where we ended our year last year. Act 57 resolution, Christine Roderick, Attorney Roderick said at the last board meeting about the new resolution that we have to approve concerning taxpayers who alleged they did not receive their tax bill, and that our tax collectors cannot impose penalties on them. They have to pay their bill at face. So that Act 57 resolution is going to be on Monday night's board agenda for approval. It has to be approved by January 7th, by no later than January 7th. Any questions about that?
Thank you, Harrisburg.
Yeah, exactly. All right. And the only other thing I have on my agenda is I have been in contact with PSLOF, which is the Pennsylvania School District's Liquid Asset Fund. So that's where all school districts, kind of a lot of school districts, place their money, kind of like Pliget, but on the Pennsylvania School Board. So Pliget is like more of like municipalities and everybody can use them. This is more of a pretty much a Pennsylvania School District's fund. So I'm looking at approval to move us into using PSLOF. One of the main reasons I would like to do it is we have that bond settlement coming up the end of October, and I need to have an account to put that money into. And they follow all the arbitrage rules that go along with that bond money, whereas we can earn some interest on it, but we can't earn an overabundance, and whatever we do earn, we have to use back into the project. So like they keep all those arbitrage rules in place for us. Plus their rates are slightly better than Pliget. And with the rates going where they are for short term, and currently we're in the middle of tax season, and I have a lot of excess revenue sitting in the bank account, I'd like to really start investing some of that money, at least for the short term, to earn some interest for the district. And at that point in time, once we start to need that money, I can then draw on it. So that is basically what I'm looking for, is a board motion for us to be able to use PSLOF. I will have a board resolution to join the fund, and then I will also need a board resolution to open up that bond account for actually the bond. So the first resolution will be just basically like opening up a basic money market account for us to put our money into, and then I need a secondary account for that bond money.
Well, it makes sense to me.
Any questions?
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Could you, maybe in the future, Sherry, give us a
kind of some feedback on how much money we have in various places. For example, we have, $1 million here at 2%, 500,000 here at
Yep.
3.4, and when it matures and stuff like that.
Sure, yep.
So we could kind of keep an eye on that.
Sure, sure can.
And I have no problem with this, of course.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Would you do the honors of closing it?
Okay, we shall start the education committee meeting.
I think we
And,
should let Rhonda do this one. I don't know.
yeah,
My name's not even on here.
Well, neither is anybody else, and they're over here, so who's gonna open it? Thank you. I'm only kidding, I don't care who does.
Thank you, gentlemen. We will open it up, and Dr. Stoker is going to walk us through the start of the education committee.
All right, thank you. Actually, many of the agenda items are going to be covered by our principals this evening. So the first one that's on there is the astronomy program. We're looking to begin at the middle school, so I'll hand things over to Mr. Hauser.
Thank you, Dr. Stoker. We did compose a grant under the ESSER funding to purchase some equipment that would expand our Earth and Space Science program and then bring a little more STEAM activity into the middle school. So we are going to develop an astronomy and astrophotography program at the middle school. We'll be getting high-quality telescope. It's a Celestron telescope model. Really state-of-the-art stuff, good for kids to learn how to calibrate equipment, take care of equipment, take measurements, really delve into this part of science. So I'm looking to train some faculty members in the use of the telescope and also imaging software, if some other funding comes through for that imaging software. And eventually, maybe a year from now, year and a little bit, expand this into a community-based program that we can, kind of house at the middle school, but then get everybody involved to kind of share an interest in all things astronomy and astrophotography. The quality of these images is like what you would see in a textbook. It is professional grade quality, really, really, exciting things. I'm looking to fund ongoing maintenance from the middle school building budget. Once we have the main equipment purchased, a lot of the odds and ends to make everything work are fairly reasonably priced, for anywhere from $20 to $50 for some odds and end things that tend to need the most maintenance. Of course, we're looking for grants to expand this program into the future. And we're already bouncing some ideas around as far as possibly getting a club going. But I'm really excited for this, not just to teach kids how to use industry quality materials, but also to let kids kind of create their own learning materials. We can do things in art class with this, science class with this, mathematics classes with this, as well as just foster some independent interest. So really, really exciting stuff there.
Thank you, Mr. Hauser.
You're welcome.
I wish I would have had that program when Jupiter was here the other day and it was low. I was out in the backyard trying to find a dark spot, trying to find it, and my telescope kept falling over and I couldn't, it was like, I don't know what.
With this telescope, you would see some amazing detail on Jupiter. Because of the brightness and actually, believe it or not, how close Jupiter is, that wouldn't necessarily be as clear as what you'd see in a textbook, but you would see like the red spot, you would see the banding, and you'd be able to see most of the Jovian moons of Jupiter. The telescope we're looking at, I also know when 2-3 years ago we had a asteroid hit Jupiter. This model was being tracked to see that, and you can actually see the impact of that in good detail. So there's lots of really good stuff we can do. It's good quality.
Yep.
Oh, I see I'm next as well.
Yep, you want to cover that one too?
Thank you. In early November, Mr. Stroll and I would like to attend the College and Career for Every Student Conference, College and Career for Every Student, known as CFES. This is the organization that we partnered with a couple of years ago. That was the basis for our focus on essential skills and also some mentoring initiatives at the high school level. At the middle school level, we of course have the essential skills class, and those are now the framework of our positive behavior support program. The annual conference is back, and there is an in-person option finally after a couple of years off. And there's some really good stuff. The agenda is linked there. Some good breakout sessions on how to build these essential skills in students, how to set up mentoring programs, and it's a good networking opportunity for schools that are part of CFES to get together and share ideas on college and career readiness endeavors. So we're very excited to go, and if there's any questions as far as what breakout sessions we're looking for, I can take those at this time or later on. But thank you for consideration for this conference.
I would just like to add that because we are a CFES school, actually a school of distinction, there is no cost to Mr. Hauser or Mr. Schroll to attend other than they can reimburse for mileage. But the cost of the conference, the meals, and accommodations are all covered by CFES.
Enjoy yourself.
Okay.
All right, the next two items are Mr. Pine.
Okay. So first I have a Canvas, just an update. So I put in the board report previously. We had a lot of interest from teachers not of the high school. The high school is in our first stage of implementation rollout. And that's all going well, but teachers not in the high school who definitely wanted to get started. They saw Canvas at the beginning of the year with the initial trainings. They liked what they saw and or just are go-getters and want to get going. So we put together early adopter cohort. That's good. That's operating, started already. It's operating with online modules that are done asynchronously, as well as meetings every 2 weeks in which they're going through progress and talking about problems and solutions. 4 middle school teachers, 6 from Slating Elementary, and 1 from Peters are now involved with that. We additionally had 4 teachers who are opting to take strictly the asynchronous course just because of other commitments that wouldn't allow them to come to those meetings. It's slightly fewer flex hours that they get for that in order to also move ahead and learn how to start using Canvas in the classroom. Next, I mentioned here, so we moved ahead and I'm happy with the way this is working out because it's kind of staging in terms of what people are trying to do, which is allowing us to learn instead of diving in and misstepping. As we build landing pages for each of the buildings, our intention here is to have a single landing page that will ultimately have 2 layers. The front layer will be accessible to everyone, parents, students, and teachers, and then through a click in, only those teachers who are included in a particular group on the back end will be able to access a set of teacher resources. Right now, the high school is using that internally with the teachers. Slating Elementary is putting some stuff out to parents and students as observers, and then has the internal piece in the background. It's going to allow for a lot of different things. Right now, we'll be able to create discussion boards in order to engage faculty and things outside of a faculty meeting or inside of a faculty meeting at times. Be able to get information out to them in a more collaborative nature. And just a more dynamic nature, and they'll already be in Canvas, so we are building that. Next thing I have is just the observer connection push. So I mentioned before, parents getting on and being able to access and see things through Canvas. So the key to them being able to do that is they have to get linked up with their children. So we did send out with teachers and to parents through back to school nights and a few other methods, codes that parents would be able to use to get linked in with their children's accounts. Through that, we ended up with 480 observers connected at Peters Elementary, 445 at Slating Elementary, 129 at the middle school, and 65 at the high school. So yeah, it's kind of flipped there. Some of that's to be expected in the sense that I think parent engagement falls off a little bit as they get older. But the numbers were lower than we expected, and Mr. Rashevsky actually sent out a Connect Ed message on Friday, a community outreach message on Friday, in order to try to get them through a QR code that was sent out to sit down with their children and get that set up. we're going to keep on this. I mean, even with those low numbers at the secondary level, we'd like to see those up. Once we get every parent connected to their child, they're connected forever. So they won't have to sign up for this every year. This won't be a continual thing. And especially as we move through the elementary levels, while we have some parents who aren't getting connected right now, we want every one of them connected because I think of it this way. I'm one of those terrible parents who never check on my kids' grades or anything until something goes wrong, right? And there are a lot of those parents out there, right? And especially as they move through the grades and they realize their kids generally have their stuff together and they're doing all right. But we want to make that so easy for them that they can. So that even someone like me who's too tied up in other things to do it and stuff like that until there's a problem, has no reason but to go onto the app, click right in and see how their kids are doing, keep up on communication. So if we can just get them linked in this once, we can make it that easy for them every year all the time. So that's Canvas update.
What happens if parents don't click in? Let's just say they just go on business as usual and
Yeah, so I mean, like the advantages of linking in is what we're trying to make clear to them. So if a parent links in, by and large, there will be little reason for them to ever have to go into Power School again. So they will engage now with Canvas, by and large, as teachers begin using that and having grades in there. Communication, obviously, is very easy in there. They'll be able to get it for all their children and separate from their emails. We're going to have to build redundancies in the way that we do things in order to make sure that we're answering to those that don't get linked in. We're just trying to make it clear to them that, I mean, if you have a smartphone and you download the Canvas app, it's a very easy to use app and it'll contain everything in one space. Any questions about that or about anything else related to Canvas?
Scott, would the end result be to do away with report cards altogether?
We have to give kind of quarterly reports. They may look different or take a different form. This is more, I would say, for formative updates where parents can kind of check almost.
So it
like
wouldn't be
weekly.
as simple as sending a message out and saying your child's first quarter report card is now posted.
So it could get to that point where we're not sending home paper report cards, but they are still going to have a report card, whether it's a digital format or
Okay.
paper. I don't yet know.
Okay.
Mr. Pine, I know, well, actually, just for my son now, I get Sunday night pushes. Does Canvas do that as well? So I'll get an actual, all of his grades that teachers entered for that week for like subjects.
So I have to check and see if it does it for observers. I know, like, for instance, so like I'm listed, no, it does, because actually I'm listed as an observer for a couple students. That's why I'm getting those emails. I have some that I'm getting as a teacher, because I'm in a couple of different accounts, a couple of different ways. So yeah, it'll push out notifications for assignments and things like that, yeah.
My son loves that I get those on a Sunday night. So it's helpful. I don't have, like, if they just come to me, I don't have to go in and access anything. Oh, there it is. Okay, he did everything he needed to do.
Yeah. And I mean, to answer the report cards thing, and my kids don't get report cards anymore. I do get a phone call that says that it's all posted on Sapphire and things like that. I mean, I think at some point, again, like with the Canvas app, I just think it's so much easier. It's so much more legible. I mean, as a parent, it's what I would want. And the Schoology app is not as good. All right, so at Insight PD.
I'm glad they didn't have that when I was a kid, because I'd have been in trouble on a regular basis. Every Sunday night I'd be getting a whooping because I didn't do something. I don't know.
Yeah, well, we'll have to exchange stories someday. I would have gotten into my small group. So the next item I have on here is at Insight PD, and I had mentioned this just this past week. We've been working through at Insight now that we have all of our data in there. Just a refresher, this is the database that's going to include all of our SIS data, all of our assessment data, and then also include our curriculum as we're inputting that into there. And all of those things are now going to link together so that we can look at where there are gaps in curriculum, look at how we're doing on the assessments, and then look at the other factors that might be impacting student performance, grades, behavior, attendance, etc. So as we're looking through all of this, and they told us this last year, we just weren't ready to have this conversation last year. We'd like to work with that Insight, with their consultant, in order to make decisions about how we're going to access and use that data and get the most out of it each step of the way. And that is their professional development. That is their approach to professional development. They don't sort of send out these presenters to give a 3-hour presentation to everyone that looks the same. They They have a consultant, Scott Hagee, a former administrator, and someone who's now worked with 200 districts across the state and outside of the state in terms of looking at Insight and then solving problems with that data. So he's going to bring with him not only a lot of obvious expertise in terms of navigating the system, but a lot of expertise in terms of what are the best practices and what are really getting results in terms of how people are using the system. So they sell their packages of 10 hours. They sell them at 10 hours at a time. We're looking to fund this first batch of 10 hours out of ESSER 3B with a connection to SEL, because we'll be able to connect the past data in here and make decisions based on students' social and emotional well-being tied to all these other factors. It's $2,500 for a package of 10 hours, and that is the package that includes some on-site time. So Scott will actually come out on-site and work with some of our teams. And we'll be working on how to divide those up if that is able to be approved on Monday. And so I guess what I'd be looking for here is the approval of this committee to move it to the agenda for Monday.
Are you looking to purchase one package? Just
Yes.
one or multiple?
No, one package of 10 hours right now, yeah.
Thank you.
Is there anything else for the Education Committee agenda this evening?
Okay.
Mr. Green, I don't know if you want to close it down and open up the policy?
You gotta close it down, you're the boss. Who's on here? Gail? No. Michelle? No. Chad? No. Here we go again, yeah. Okay, I'll open it. Policy committee is open. Wow.
Thank you. The first item that we have on the agenda this evening is bags and our venue update, which Mr. Link is going to take that one.
Okay, so I shared out my board report, I believe last Friday it was, that we're looking to kind of change things a little bit, constantly trying to improve our safety and security around the district, and especially for some of our more highly attended events. So we would like to move forward. We've ordered signage to have at the stadium gates as well as the high school, middle school gymnasium, where that no packages larger than 8 inches by 4 inches by 6 inches, unless approved by staff, are going to be permitted in. We're really trying to target, in particular, youth bringing in book bags, like backpack type things. There's really no reason for them to bring in a bunch of stuff into one of these events. And then, of course, just to remind everybody and reinforce that, as has always been the case, all bags are subject to search. We feel like we're at a place now that we can do better with being preventative, and part of that is with these backpacks. So this is kind of the model that you may see, boarding an airplane with your personal item, or Mr. Hauser pointed out, if you go to a concert anymore, you're not allowed to take in even a small. I don't even believe most venues allow women to take in a purse anymore. So we don't want to go that far, but we do want to try to tighten our procedures a little bit. If we do decide to randomly search bags, or to search bags that people want to bring in because maybe they have a toddler and they need to keep formula, chilled or something like that, we would have a separate area where they can go over with the table, and we can just ask them to open it up and quickly look inside.
Are other districts adopting similar policies?
Yeah, we actually had a long conversation about this at our last superintendent's meeting. I brought it to the whole group just to kind of get a pulse on what the rest of the county's doing. They're doing everything from mandatory searches, where they actually have some districts use like constables at their larger events, and any package that's coming in, there's a line and you just got to wait to get checked. To some of them are doing more of the limiting, exactly what we have here, and there's 1 or 2 districts that they're doing nothing, but after our conversation I suspect that they're going to move to something.
Yeah, I didn't want us to be the only one, so it's like, oh, those darn guys at Northern Lehigh,
Yeah.
you know, and we're playing in our own little world there, but it sounds like we're not, so
we,
that's good.
we actually tried it a little bit at our last board meeting, I'm sorry, at our last football game where Mr. Geis reached out to the visiting team and told their AD and coaches, please don't have your traveling spectators bring in any packages to the events. I know our plan is at the high school and middle school to put the notification out to students that they are no longer allowed to take book bags in. And we're just kind of rolling into it instead of just like all of a sudden dropping it, 4 hours before a football game.
Fine.
Okay. And that's not going to be any policy changes. It actually falls in line with our policies. Most of our policies give us the authority. Actually, several of our policies give us the authority to do this already. Okay. All right, Dr. Stoker.
Okay. We have two policies on the agenda this evening. We have policy 218, which is student discipline, and we have policy 227, which is controlled substances and paraphernalia. If we look at student discipline, Northern Lehigh's policy was last revised in 2007, so it's a bit old, so there's some updates to make. It is a mandated policy through PSBA that we have that. Language regarding off-campus activities was revised just to clarify circumstances under which the Code of Conduct and board policy applies. There's a list, I'm not going to read them all, but there's a list there of the circumstances where off-campus student conduct where it's applicable in this policy. And the other major change was many of our policies are being updated to include the threat assessment team. This one was also included as an update for this policy. Any questions on that one? Okay. Do we have permission for the board members present to move that for a first reading on Monday night at the October board meeting?
Yep.
Okay. The second policy is 227, that's controlled substances and paraphernalia. Again, this is an older policy for us. It was last revised in 2004, so some significant changes have happened since then. It's recommended by PSBA for legal liability purposes. Again, it deals with what's off-campus activity and what's on-campus activity. The off-campus activities are now completely referred to in policy 218. So under that student discipline policy that we just talked about, so that is where school administrators would enforce that policy when considering consequences for off-campus or not outside of non-school hours, outside of school hours conduct. First, second, and third violations were removed at the end of the policy. They haven't changed for anabolic steroids since really 1989. That's the last that it's been updated, but we just felt that we'd take that out of there. We can still have a reference to that, but if it does change, then we don't have to change policy. We just change the reference that we're looking at. So it wouldn't be a significant change, but that hasn't changed. Those first, second, and third violations will still remain the same. And then a reference to policy 236, which is a student assistance program, was also added, and you'll just see that really at the end or in the numbers of the references that are included. Any questions on that? Okay. Do we have the permission of the board members present to move policy 227 for first reading to the board meeting?
Yeah, both of us, yeah. You both?
Thank you.
Hey, my vote carries 50%.
And I think that's all we have for the policy committee.
You all
So.
done? All right, we'll close that one, your turn.
Okay, I'd like to open the Community Relations Committee meeting.
Thank you. So, Mr. Stroll was going to give us an update on these, but he's attending to a sick child right now. We have three major events coming up near the end of next week. First is our homecoming bonfire, which is always a huge community event, and you'll see some of the notes there. We have 6 food truck vendors that have confirmed to be there. The first responders from the footprint of kind of Northern Lehigh School District will also be in attendance as they have been for many years now. All of our fall student athletes will be introduced by their head coaches, And we're also going to have tables set up for kind of our clubs to either do fundraising or just raise awareness about their clubs, hopefully to increase participation. I know that Mr. Stroll has worked with Mr. Rashevsky, Mr. Geis, and officers Nous and Jones to kind of reconfigure how it's set up. One, so all the people are in front of the speakers instead of around the speakers. We learned last year that it's, even though they're good speakers, if you're behind them, you don't hear them. So we actually are going to have kind of a stage in the back, like a stage area, which by that is probably going to mean the sidewalk behind the auditorium wall, the exterior of the auditorium wall. Food trucks will be on one side of the parking lot, and the club's tables will be on the other side. So we're looking forward to this new setup, and hopefully it'll increase the ability for everybody to hear the speaker. Then we have our homecoming parade the next evening, which will begin down near Rensselaer's, come up Center, and then go down Bulldog Avenue or Bulldog Lane to the stadium itself. Again, Officer Nous is working with the borough to, kind of traffic patterns, ensuring that once the parade actually turns onto the campus property, that we'll have the traffic barriers up so people can't try to come down Snyder Avenue and turn left on the Bulldog Lane when, the students are actually processing down Bulldog Lane. And again, we're looking to start that right at 6 p.m. and then that will head into the football game in the stadium that evening. And then Saturday night will be our homecoming dance hosted at the high school. Student council has been working hard on this fall dance. So far we have confirmations from the DJ, food, other refreshments, and a big hit last year in our spring dance was the photo booth. I chaperoned that dance last year, and I think the line was probably 20, 30 students deep the entire night. I think that'll become a new fun tradition here. Any questions on any of the activities slated for next week?
Do the tickets go on sale yet for the homecoming dance?
Yes.
Today?
Yes, I saw we sold like the tickets already.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Rashevsky. Any other questions?
I'm just looking for a couple yearbooks at the bonfire.
Oh, yeah,
Mr.
thank you.
Barnes, yeah.
So, Mr.
I
Barnes,
think you're gonna have a hit with that.
I think so. Thank you for mentioning that, Mrs. Williams. If you're not aware, if you are a graduate of Northern Lee High School District or you know anyone who is and they lost a yearbook, never got a yearbook, there are from different classes, yeah, that there's extra ones and they're gonna make them available for sale, for purchase that night at the bonfire. So first come, first serve.
So being sold at the 1940s rate, or are they at the?
I think there's a slight adjustment for inflation, but honestly, it's much less than buying a new yearbook.
I think you said $10.
I thought he said 10, but I don't.
That's
I think it was
pretty cheap.
something.
Yeah, no kidding.
Well, I got carried away on a tornado, so. So when I saw him post that online.
I don't think every year is there, like I know, I
Yeah.
don't think at some of the years are not, definitely not there.
So he told me when I talked to him about it that
That's
they were just unclaimed from the original purchasers. They never came to get them. So we're gonna.
And who's doing that?
It's gonna be through our yearbook club, and Mr. Barnes is the advisor for that. So yeah, that should be neat. Okay, any other questions? All right, that concludes that agenda, sir.
We're done, I guess. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.